Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Jen. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back and thank you. If you are new, don't forget to click the subscribe button down below. So as many of you know, I am a woman in long-term recovery. I'm also a CARC, a CRPA, a rape crisis counselor, and a Narcan trainer. If you look in my description box down below, you'll see a bunch of other things that I've been involved with, as well as my Patreon, my merchandise, and my Amazon wish list. I use my Amazon wish list to help people in my local community who are either homeless, just came home from incarceration, just who need some help. You know, we all could use some help, especially around the holiday time. So today I'm going to tell you guys a funny story about my husband and I. Well, I think it's funny, and I'm sure he thinks it's funny now too. He probably didn't think it was funny while it was happening. So as you guys know, if you have been watching for a while, Jared is my husband, and he and I were both incarcerated at the same time. He went in about a year after me. But during this time, you know, you are not allowed any contact with your significant other except if you have correspondence, approved correspondence. So since we were legally married, we had to take copies of our marriage certificate, send them to the administration of each prison that we were in, and then they had to give us approval to be able to correspond via letters, and we were able to get that. So we were given permission. Funny part is we were given permission while we were incarcerated to be, you know, together and have permission to contact each other and stuff. But when we came home, we weren't at first. It took us 15 months to get permission. Yeah. So anyway, that being said, at one point in time, so Jared was in shock and he ended up getting medically disqualified because he has breathing issues, but he was in shock and I was in regular prison. And so my amazing mother-in-law was like, yeah, sure, I'll tell Jared to call at the same time you do so we could do a three-way call. So it's highly illegal when you are incarcerated, right? I don't know. I guess they want to know everyone because you have like a phone list where you put people's phone numbers on and they get approved by the jail or prison or whatever. So if you don't have that approval, while you're incarcerated, you can't speak to that particular person. Well, so I told my mother-in-law, make sure Jared calls, you know, I forget the date and time, but like Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And she was like, all right. So she told him and he would call at the same time. And so would I, and we would talk. Well, I probably shouldn't. So when you're in shock, they read all your mail. Ingoing, outgoing. Well, no, outgoing unless you're on mail watch. But all incoming mail, they read, especially if you have correspondence. So if you have correspondence, your mail goes to your counselor and they literally, when I tell you they read it line for line, I did not know this until I myself went to shock too. Literally, like I could see like pen marks on the paper where they like, you know, stopped to like answer a call and didn't want to lose their place or something. Craziness. So I wrote to him and I was like, oh my God, I missed you so much. It was so great to hear your voice. I needed that. Thank you so much. Da, 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 da. And then whatever else I said in the letter, I guess I said some inappropriate things. I mean, he's my husband. I hadn't seen him in a while. So of course I said some, you know, juicy shit. Like that's my man. Like, why wouldn't I? And I guess the counselor was very offended by what I said. I can't even imagine it was that bad. Like, Maybe it was that bad. It was, well, I mean, I don't even really remember what I wrote, but I think I definitely wrote some explicit sexual content, we'll say. Okay, we'll leave it G-rated on that one. And I guess she got really offended by what I wrote, and then she like reread the letter. She couldn't have been too offended, right? And then she, you know, realized that we had some sort of verbal contact and they wrote him a ticket and he got in trouble. So he was in the disqual side already where he was like disqualified from being, you know, in part of the platoon because of for medical reasons. And he was going back to regular prison. So he's already in the disqual unit. It's not like he lost his program behind it, but they acted like he committed a new crime. Like he did it. It really was me. So he was like, I forget what happened when he was in shock. Oh, he wasn't allowed to use the phone, so he couldn't even call his mom. He wasn't allowed to, like, it's not like they get commissary or anything while they're there in Lakeview. So he got put, like, you know, he went on the next transport out of there. Like, they were like, we don't want you here, even if it's a disqual. Go somewhere else. Like he was a bad person because of it. It was just craziness. I think Lena's stuck in a bag. She'll be fine. So he got to regular prison and they gave him a hearing for his ticket. I think he got like 30 days loss of packages, 30 days loss of phone and whatever. You know, I mean, they went like extra hard with it. Like it wasn't even that big of a deal. So I got him a ticket, unfortunately. I mean, he didn't have to go to like lock for it, which thank God, because that would have been a bit excessive. But I mean, when on my end, when my mother-in-law told me what happened and I found out, I went right over to the sergeant and I was like, listen, I need to ask you a question. I said, I need to know if this is going to screw up my chances of going to shock. And he was like, what's up? What happened? And I told him and he was like, oh my God. He was like, they're so extra with it. He was like, we know three-way calls happen all the time. He was like, he goes, we listen to them. He goes, if they're wildly inappropriate as far as talking about committing a crime or a previous crime, he goes, then we report them. He goes, but if someone's just talking to their man or their kid that they can't get in touch with through a three-way call, he was like, we let them go. He was like, don't worry about it. He's like, you're going to be fine. Because if I would have gotten a ticket too while I was in the waiting process of going to shock, that could have potentially so a couple of things could happen. Either I could have went into lock and made me miss the transport to go to them, and that would have postponed me being able to join the platoon that I did. So it would have put me back 6 months. Would have kept me in prison 6 months longer. Or it could have actually, depending on how the ticket was written, if they wrote it as a very severe ticket, it could have potentially canceled my chances of going to shock. Because shock, you can't have any type of, you know, infractions or open tickets or anything like that. That's a no-no. Like, that's a severe no-no. So thank God I was in a facility that wasn't like overreacting, and thank God Jared was already medically disqualified, so he didn't like lose his shot. He ended up going to Altona Correctional Facility from there, and from what I understand, he had a all right time of it. You know, it wasn't, he ended up getting outside clearance. So I think he ended up doing like 30 days more being in regular prison than he would have if he was in the shock program. He had only been sentenced to a 1 to 3 because it was his first conviction for state time. So he had a easier time of it than if he would have had a really large sentence and then got medically disqualified. If he would have had 5 or under and then got disqualified from shock, it would have been really horrible for him. But since he only had a 1 to 3, he only did a year, it was all right. It wasn't that major of a deal. For me, I had a 3 flat, and I'm just super grateful that I was able to do shock. As many of you know, if you have watched any of my previous videos, I was sentenced to 3 years flat with 2 years post supervision. So what I'm on right now is actually not regular parole. It's regular parole in the sense of the daily parole activities, if you will, but for violations and things of that nature, that's when it gets different. That's when it gets worse. For me, so when you're on parole and you get a violation, you can get like little violations, 45 days to do a program, 90 days, 6 months, 8 months, year, whatever the infraction is, comes with a set guidance for what the violation looks like. So for me, because I'm on post, I have to do 2 years of post supervision, right? If at any point in time I get an infraction, my time could potentially start all over again. So I could be 3 days short of the 2 years of doing my post, get a violation, go do a 6-month violation, come home and owe 2 years all over again. That's why this merit date is so detrimental for me, because potentially there could be no end in sight for me. I don't foresee me ever getting a violation. I don't do drugs. I don't commit crimes. I don't break the rules. But you never know, when your life is in someone else's hands, it's a sketchy place. So for Jared, if he, God forbid, got a violation and did 90 days, he'd come home, and if he owed 64 days before he went into prison, he would still only owe 64 days. He could keep running while he's incarcerated, or he can max out while he's incarcerated. He won't start his parole all over again. With post, the potential to start all over again is real. I ended up getting my husband a ticket and getting him loss of phone, loss of packages, all because I told him how good it was to hear his voice, because at that time I hadn't heard his voice in probably 5-6 months, and I missed him and I love him. He's my best friend. He's not for everybody, but he is the absolute love of my life. I love him. He's my soulmate. He's my best friend. He has been there for me through everything. He doesn't judge me. He supports me, and he loves me unconditionally. And I felt horrible that I got him in trouble, but I mean, silly in hindsight, you know? I hope you enjoyed this little story today about me getting Jared in trouble for once. And don't forget, this Wednesday will be Wellness Wednesday. It'll be the first series in the Wellness Wednesday vlog. So I hope you guys all had a great weekend, and I will see you on Wednesday. Bye.